With diversity comes, I think, only greater opportunity for you to learn, greater opportunity for us to grow, more ideas, because really it was just a bunch of guys sitting around a room most of the time. I mean, it is. And it gets really boring.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where usually I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories, except when I talk to men. And today is one of those days. I'll explain in a minute. Our presenting sponsor continues to be the entertainment payroll company, Extreme Reach. They have the most comprehensive suite of tools and services to support all areas of media and content creation, from tax incentive support to accounting software and payroll services. If you are creating content, you need them. Call them and tell them I sent you. Today, I spoke with Matt Birch. Matt is a partner at the Agency for the Performing Arts, or APA, and is a co-head of the physical production department. He came up through production and reluctantly became an agent in 2009, where he tries to bring a little extra something different to the art of agenting. I met Matt when recording for the upcoming podcast Catch a Break, which is the insider's guide to getting into and navigating Hollywood. In fact, go to catchabreakpodcast.com right now and subscribe so you'll be notified when it launches. Sorry for that extra plug, but that felt pretty organic, didn't it? Anyway, during that interview, Matt mentioned that he was on the men's committee of Me Too, which, as you can imagine, made my ears perk up, and I immediately booked him for this show to dig a little deeper. This corresponds with a feeling I have been having that it is time to start bringing men into the conversation and engaging them in the process toward equality. And Matt is one of the men who are actively evolving and trying to be part of the solution. We talked about Me Too and harassment, hiring practices, the wage gap, how men are talking to each other, and a little bit about how men can hold each other accountable in ways that will be effective. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. Okay, here's my conversation with Matt Birch. Have a listen. What do you do?
I'm a partner at APA Agency. I run with my co-heads, the physical production department here.
So you represent behind-the-scenes personnel?
Yeah, more below the line, as they say. They have the, from producers, cinematographers, production designers, stunt coordinators. There's about 16 categories. And then a couple of us as well concentrate on representing production service companies around the world and some sound studio groups as well.
Oh, that's handy.
It is.
Like Cinecittà.
Yeah, Cinecittà. I mean, there's a lot of the beauty of...
what are those people called?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. We're on the phone today trying to pronounce one. We're trying to be a production resource more than an agency, if that makes sense. And a lot of us here at my agency have come from physical production, and that is what we've tried to perpetuate so people know that we know what we're talking about.
I feel like you rep half the people who've been on this podcast.
I'd like to rep more because they're all awesome.
Okay, everybody call Matt. You came up through production.
I did.
Tell the story of your first day on production.
Oh, wow. All right, so first day, my first real job, an incredible mentor who took me on. She was also went to Boston University, Lauren Schuler-Donner, a producer. And at the time, she had an overall deal at Warner Brothers, and Richard Donner, her husband, was directing. I was completely clueless 2 weeks into LA and came into her office. Long story short, she hired me as one of her assistants, and let's just cut to the end of week one. Week one, mom and dad call, hey, how's your new job at Warner Brothers? How's that going? Great, really great, exciting week. Well, what do you do? Well, let me tell you about a typical day, Mom. So this morning I woke up and I drove to Lauren's house and we selected which car we were going to drive in. I said then, went into the office and ran some errands and took a couple of the dogs to chemotherapy treatments, and then went, after that, there were some recycling bins there throughout the bungalow, and someone's got to clean them, so, hands and knees, and clean them out with some Clorox and water, and then drove Lauren back to the house. And there's silence on the other end.
Like you've made it.
Well, silence. And my mother, of course, because they're always on the phone together, she was an artist and very relaxed. Maddie, that is wonderful. I'm so happy for you. And then I just hear heavy breathing of my father on the end, who's a big litigator and attorney. He's like, I said, pretty great for 4 years of college, Dad. What do you think? He's like, So that was my first job. It went on for years and it was incredible, but that was my real first exposure. It got a lot better, let's put it that way. But
I imagine it got better.
Yes.
So you came up eventually, were you producing, line producing?
I started as a PA and worked my way up generally through production office. Left the business for a couple years, went to the East Coast and was doing some, prior to that I went to Tribeca Productions for De Niro's company. I worked several years as a development executive there. That was after working with Lauren. Then I went out of the business, went to an ad agency, and then I came back and really started the steps up from PA to production secretary, coordinating, supervising, and then went in-house and started producing for a company here. Started learning how to produce more overseas. A lot of the films I was working on as a supervisor in town were all really large tentpole films. So I was excited after that to be able to work on $5 to $10 million films and figure out how to do it, because I never knew how to do it. So
it's a good puzzle.
It's a huge puzzle, and as everyone knows, it varies from region to region. Depends who you're working with. So yeah.
Then how did you transition into being an agent?
That's a goodie. So I was working at a self-finance company producing films. 2008 hit, and the company decided they weren't going to be doing the financing as well. And really, production went by the wayside. My contract was coming up, and an excellent old friend and agent, John Fury, talked to me about what's next for me. And we had a nice dinner. He called me the next day and said that, hey, I was thinking that you should come work for me. And I said, work for you? And he said, I mean, work with me. And I said, oh, work with you. And there'll be expletives. I said, John, are you telling me you want me to be an agent? He's like, well, and he just started dancing.
Let's not call it an agent.
Yeah, I mean, we're licensed under the Labor Commissioner of California, so, executives are. I said, John, I fucking hate agents. John said, yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I said, but let's talk. So we spent the next 4 to 6 weeks just figuring out what does it mean. He wanted someone to come in and run his company.
Did you say 46 weeks?
4 to 6 weeks.
Oh.
Sorry. We spent the next 4 to 6 weeks discussing what that would look like, because I really was having trouble wrapping my head around it. Anyway, a couple months later, went in there. We had a great team in there at the time, and very long story short, several months later, unfortunately, John took his life and left us, and I was put in a position where his widow essentially said, I'll stand behind you if you want to keep doing this, or we can really liquidate and shut it down.
At that point, how long had you been doing it?
4.5 months. Yeah. So.
Oh my God.
Exactly. But why I was comfortable being an agent after telling everyone in this industry that I knew that I had gone to the dark side, and they were just shocked that I really wanted to, it sounds naive, I really wanted to see if we could do it differently and try to bring some integrity. I had a very good reputation as just being honest and being kind of straightforward, and let's just say I have a lot more enemies now than I ever had, but I was pretty good before. And it was really, so I didn't have much time, but when John died, we had about 400 clients, I think, and a month later we had barely 40. They'd all just gone.
Yeah.
It was massive poaching around town, and
I'm sure everyone freaked out.
Yeah, and I get it. So over the next years, the team that remained, we did some adjustments. The team that remained, many of which are here at APA now on our team, we rebuilt it, and it was a different psychology I had to bring than what was operating then, and different ways we could look at the future and revenue, and really expanding into the international market and the production services, and not being just a straight agency, because we had a disadvantage of being, many people as they grow up in the world, let's say our producers at the time, we're at a below-the-line agency, and they had above-the-line aspirations as well, whether that was lit or directing, et cetera. So we came across that challenge. We were able to kind of break that barrier of, I know we're a below-the-line agency, but it doesn't mean we can't do these deals. And so we started doing some directing deals and things like that. And then this is a big jump forward. We ended up taking the company to APA and merging with Jay Gilbert and Gil Harari, who had left a couple months prior from Paradigm, and we formed this division at APA, which had never been here before, a physical production division. And that was a little over 5 years ago.
So now you have all the pieces.
All of them.
And you recently became partner.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that are going to sound ridiculous.
Cool.
Did you ever feel any obstacles as you were coming up because of your gender? I can't even ask that with a straight face.
No, you should ask that with a straight face. Look, I'll be honest, it's not just a one-way street. And there were definitely situations where stories could be told and where people think it's only male to female. It's not always that way.
Oh, I'm sure.
Intelligently or not, I never ventured on any of those opportunities. Still made it, still didn't get destroyed in this industry. But
wait, slow down. Did you get quid pro quo offers?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, which is not uncommon from, there's maybe a small group of people that don't talk about that.
From women?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, and I'm sorry to be naive, yes, and I'm sure from male to male as well. Anyway, that being said, to answer your original question, no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, come on.
Come on.
Come on. No, really.
Okay, now, I don't usually interview men, as you know, although
Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like, because I'm in all of these conversations, so I feel like I'm in this evolution of this conversation.
Right.
I think we're at the point where we have to start talking to men.
Yeah, I was at an interesting meeting a couple months ago, and it was the TimesUp meeting at someone's private residence, and a really important point was made at the end of the few hours we were there. There was a lot of work going on and breaking up into different groups and trying to see how we can kind of keep pushing the ball forward. And it was male and female there. One of the female leaders of the group, who has been involved from the beginning, said, I invited a lot of men I know in this business, and none of them came. None of them are here tonight.
Yeah.
And I was invited by someone who's in the group who's female as well. And she said, I don't know how to get them here. And it was very simple for me. I just raised my hand and I addressed it and I said, you need to have people like me ask them. Because when you're asking them, I think there's a stigma, or this was very much initially when everything started breaking a little while ago, where men felt like, whether they'd ever done anything or not, almost like it was a trap.
Are they the sacrificial lamb coming to this meeting?
Am I going to be judged on, this? I saw this yesterday in the paper. This happens every day, where there are some poorly behaved people in every industry of this world. Entertainment, I think, is very high on the list of poorly behaved people. But there are a majority and a lot of really good, smart, level-headed people that just don't do those things. Mm-hmm. But to kind of answer your initial point, the women, I feel, in this industry it would behoove them to bring more men into this cause, the whole cause, and there's many causes, but I think it's for the common goal. Because when I invited men to the group, they were able to ask me questions before they said yes. And they all showed. One might say, why, what's this about, what's going on, who's going to be there, all those things.
Am I going to be stabbed at the door?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe they had maybe they behaved badly and there was something in their closet, But that being said, others were like, yeah, of course, I'd love to be involved, or what do we do? And, it's just a lot of the questions that are being asked now. But overall, to your point, bringing men into this conversation is, fortunately or not, one of the only ways it's really going to move forward with some speed.
Yeah.
And that's because we have been in this antiquated relationship, let's say, as peers in this industry for decades, many decades. And it's not going to change overnight,
It is a long game.
Absolutely, that's the best way to put it. It is a long game. You have to play the long game. If waiting for results or judging results next year are, I don't think, going to be very encouraging for people.
Well, the Golden Globes list just came out, and
yeah.
Everyone's sending it around like, great.
Exactly.
We've gotten nowhere.
No, exactly. It's going to take time. Part of my perspective is the majority of my supervisors and bosses my entire career have been female. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a perspective that I don't know, this is also having a strong mom and a strong sister as well, and a father that is very much into equality. It's just, we're all raised differently. But looking through their eyes, hearing their stories of these, I'm in my early 20s or 30s or early 40s back then. And everyone has a story. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a story. And especially if you're a female executive, I get the stories of what maybe they had to do, or good or bad, or the fights that they had, or the perceptions of them, which of course, they can be perceived one way while men can be perceived another. And I was also seeing the strength and power and effectiveness of how they were at this time. So I think my point of view in support of the whole thing is, it's human and it's in me, but it's also, God, we're much further along than we were even 50 years ago. And it's just been really gross and messy, and, the stuff that's come out the last couple of years, but it had to.
Yeah.
This stuff has to come out, so.
Coming up, where you said you had a lot of female bosses and leaders, did you think, this is just the way it is?
I didn't think about it. I never thought about it. I heard stories of, I'll be honest, I was told I'll never work in this town again. I got the line, and I was 1997, I remember, and it was from a male. And I didn't have those arguments with my female superiors. I found I was respected on a human level, and this goes to even producers that were my bosses that now I represent even, who cared about family, who cared about my family, who cared about me getting married and having children and the trials and tribulations of that. So, sorry, I'm totally going on a tangent.
I'm hearing you say it was maybe a different power dynamic when you had male bosses versus female bosses.
Yes, yeah. So I think the dynamics having more female bosses I felt, it may sound strange, almost like there was more equality in the room. I would always be sharing an office with them generally, whether it was a company job or mostly freelance that I did for decades. We'd be sharing an office. And it's also, I think you have to listen and understand, and men and women are completely different. Mm-hmm. And I have very few skill sets, but one is that I can listen. And it helped me. And sometimes give good advice. And that, I think it all goes to the greater good of, one can't be so defensive when told to, go pick up lunch and make sure the 16 salads are correct and triple check. Or, I'd sit late at night and hear stories from a lot of women who had missed out on A, B, and C, who turned around and, oh shit, it's been 20 years and I have 3 years left of my childbearing years. And
I forgot to have kids.
Yeah, almost. That's an excellent and really sad way to put it. But yeah, and hearing those stories and watching it, it helped me make my priorities in life. And there's pieces of my mom I still remember that she was a very strong woman, and very liberal and very progressive, let's say. And stories from my bosses, people that I looked up to. Our job is to learn, I think, from everyone we work for and with, and you learn what you do want to do or what you don't want to do. Behavior you will continue and share, and then bad behavior that hopefully you won't do. The point of all that is I found, I think, better guidance and more time and patience with the female bosses that I've had in my life.
So there's a men's committee inside of TimesUp?
Well, so we all met, I was invited by one of the female members, this is a year ago, to the first one, and it was a meeting that was held just for men. Mm-hmm. And it was a great initial gathering. There was about 100 people, I think it was max 100 people, in a room, a conference room at UCLA, and the leaders of the group came in and said, hey, we're not here to stay. It was moderated by some very, large directors out there. There were two in general that were covering it, and the room was filled with actors and producers and writers and just kind of across the board. And it was fascinating, that first meeting, which we're all, task-oriented doers, and we all wanted to leave literally with a list of,
let's fix it list.
Right, let's fix it. Let's fix it overnight. Yeah. We can do this.
Wait, back up a minute though. Yeah. What was the conversation in the room?
Conversation in the room was, before the two leaders left, we're like, hey, stay, come on. And they're like, look, this is your safe space. This is this is where you can all talk openly.
Yeah.
And what was it like in the room? There were some really honest conversations. There were honest questions. There were people standing up telling stories of, well, I thought this, or, and it was moderated. There's two gentlemen that were moderating. One was a PhD from New York University who specialized in human behavior. The other one was a leader in the movement who typically his company prior to this big break, he would be contracted by major NFL, NBA teams and travel with the teams and be day-to-day with the players on location. No, yes, can't do this, we're going to bed, whatever it is. Yeah. And so it was a fascinating perspective. He, I can't go into the specifics of what was said in there. It was, again,
safe space.
Very safe space. But I will say, I was asked a question, and it was the right question, and it started all of us thinking. The question was, he looked at, looked around the room, pointed, hey, what's your name? Matt. Okay, Matt, you have kids? I go, yeah, I have a daughter and a son. What's your daughter? 13. He said, okay, and this is after he told many stories about himself and some horrible behavior in his past growing up in the streets of Chicago. And I said, he said, has your daughter ever heard you say something to the effect of, you throw like a girl? And I didn't pause, and I said, yeah, she has. And he goes, when? I said, probably when I said it to my son with her there. And he said, so how do you think that makes your daughter feel? And I said, it makes her feel that she can never throw as good as a man. And it sounds like a simple little up and back, but it sat with me and everyone else. And there were many of these examples of us going, oh, wow.
That's early and deep.
This is, not only is it early and deep, it made me realize, again, getting out of the type A, type B personality realm, that this was not going to be solved at all overnight, let alone in a year. In my head, I'm like, yeah, we can get through this in a year or two. We'll get everyone on board.
We'll just get everyone to behave in the office.
Right.
That'll problem solve.
We'll change everyone's past upbringing and childhood. And no, but it goes to the point of this is generational. I mean, this is, and believe me, that from that day forward, and it was much more discussed. It was supposed to be, I think, an hour and a half, it ended up 3 hours. No one wanted to leave. But things that started in that group, I use every day at home and at work, and you have to, and it's not hard to do.
Right, yeah.
That this is stemming from me, the changes of, I'm one person, and I have a daughter and a son, and the things that have stopped me, and that's what I think probably men feel more of. You feel like you're putting the brakes on yourself when you're about to say something, whether it's mildly just off or terribly offensive, whatever range you're in. Mm-hmm. I think about all of it now. And the trouble is, and there's been thousands of discussions of this, how far on the pendulum swing do you go? Then, going the other way, we just had our recent sexual harassment training annually here. And
I bet that's different than it was 2 years ago.
It is beyond belief different. But in that, they're still figuring out the rules. There's a way to talk to people and compliment them where you're not doing elevator eyes and being leery and creepy. I err on the compliment someone as you would compliment them normally, because I never really had big issues on that.
Yeah.
And use common sense. Like there are times that I may have wanted to compliment something recently that I just don't, and it's okay. Life goes on.
You can live with that comment inside of you.
I can live with, wow, that looks fantastic for your figure. I don't need to say that.
Never say for your figure. Never say that part.
That's an excellent point. It's weird that I'm single.
It's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle. I'll figure it out someday.
Tell me this. While we're on this, have you ever told a woman to smile?
Never.
Really?
Never in my life. I've had, and this is true, within the last 3 years, 2 to 3 years, 3 women tell me that they have a resting bitch face, or RBF, which was like the first time.
We all read that article and we all learned it and figured we all had it.
Right. No, never have.
Darn, because I was going to ask you a bunch of questions about that, because
we've
all been told to smile a million times.
Why?
And when you ask the men, why are you telling me to smile?
To make them feel better?
Well, we take it as you just want me to sit here and look pretty for your pleasure.
No,
Because
okay.
I've been told that while I was typing in front of my computer, men would walk by, executives, and be like, smile. I'd be like, what is wrong with you? I'm typing. Like, did you tell the guy?
Do they say that to you're right. I was going to say, I don't remember being told
you
to
just passed
smile.
4 male
Right.
executives you didn't say that to. So think about that. But when you ask men why they say it, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm just trying to be friendly.
That's not nice.
And don't mean anything by it necessarily.
Then why would you say it?
All right.
That's insane.
It's
no, give me
weird.
another one because I can say yes.
And women are enraged by it.
I get it. I would probably lose a lot of jobs if I was asked that with my response. Yeah, that's insane and sounds 1950s madmanish.
It's 2016 in my experience.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I assume there are a lot of men with your perspective looking at this whole thing the way that you're looking at it. And there's also a bunch of men who are not. And do you talk to those guys? What are they saying?
Yeah. Which guys? Both? The latter?
The other guys.
The other ones. The ones that don't subscribe to my way of thinking. Absolutely. Look, there are a lot of great points brought up again in these group meetings that we've had, and our job is, figuring out how to disseminate it within our worlds, our little worlds within the worlds. And one of them is, no man, this is the example given, and I've told it to a lot of people, which is, you're in a conference room, could be a production meeting, whatever it may be. It's all men and one woman in the room. People are throwing out ideas about whatever subject it is. Boom, boom, boom. The woman says, I think X, and immediately one of the male executives goes, well, that's silly, or that's dumb, or whatever the hell it is, or scoffs at it, or
doesn't even address it.
Or doesn't address it.
Didn't even hear it.
And, and this guy who was explaining this to us at that first meeting, he said, freeze the room right there. He said, let's say there's 10 guys and one woman. He said, I guarantee you 5 or 6 men are looking at the floor. He said, 3 are looking at the guy who did it, and 1 is looking at the woman who received it. He said, that's what would happen if you froze the room. He said, so what do you do after that meeting? If you're really bothered by it and you noticed it all and you're bothered.
Wait, that meeting's not over, because 5 minutes later in that meeting, another guy said that idea and everyone thought it was fantastic.
Sure, absolutely, of course, why not? Maybe put the words in different order, but yes, it's probably the same sentence. It was like a word puzzle. Yes, but meeting's over, what do? Well, yeah, you go to her office and you say, hey, that was really terrible what happened. I really hated seeing that happen. And he said, no, you don't do that. You don't go to the woman's office and say that. You go to the guy's office, the guy that also was looking shocked in the meeting, and you go into his office and you say, hey, I need a pact. And he was making the point that no man will attack another man without someone backing him up, meaning another male backing him up. And it's, more of a psychological study that, someone won't go, hey, that was inappropriate, unless they know that their other male colleague will echo the same and say, yeah, man, that's how men work. And again, I'm not a psychology major, but that's
a good piece of information.
It was a great, great point. And what he said was, no, you don't go into her office. You go into that guy's office and you say, hey, man, that was BS what happened before. So-and-so said this. We need to work together that if that happens again in a room, that we have each other's back. And this is just trust here. And generally, I think 90% of the time, both parties would go, yeah, you got it. And they would effectively do it. And then it starts breaking down these people who think quickly about, let's put this woman down or that woman down. It was just an interesting point about men, which is, we, again, back to the very different creatures, that a man will generally not attack another man for something subtle, even though it seems subtle, not so subtle to the female who's getting shut down every time she brings up.
It's damaging to her career.
Absolutely.
Is there any conversation in that of why is there only one woman in the room?
Well, no, I think that's the obvious one, which is massively changing in terms of the glacial speed it was going for decades. I think it's huge what's going on in the last couple of years even. I love it.
Are you seeing more women in rooms?
I'm seeing more women in rooms. I'm sitting in meetings at very large companies, entertainment companies, and it's all women and me. And we're getting calls for our cinematographers, our female cinematographers are all working. And not only they're all working, they're getting directing opportunities that they never would have had before. And this, there's another pendulum swing to that, which I had a conversation with a creative at another company, which is, we have to get a diverse director, or we have to get a female. Well, not all of those directors, let's assume they're female or transgender, or whatever they may be in terms of a white male director, not all of them are appropriate for the job, or maybe have enough experience for the job. So that's been the push and pull of this, is you have a success, it's like, great, look, we're doing the right thing, we gave this woman an opportunity, now she's a big director, great. The other side is, oh, look, we brought in a woman to do this job. It was a horrible episode, and well, she didn't have the. It's all about who you hire anyway. But so I see the change.
But then the shift is, we can never hire another woman.
Absolutely.
Versus,
right.
I'll give her another shot.
Right. No, because they, again, this is all probably all legal matters, but they that said company or network or studio can check the box that. And actually there is a DGA box that you check every year about diversity in all your hires and all your productions. And they can check that box and say, well, we did that. I don't think that's really the trend. I think what I'm seeing is there are so many more groups being formed to support women directors. HBO is an amazing group. Disney is an amazing group. And the individual women's groups of all kinds, and I know you're member of several of them, everyone's helping each other out. And there's a lot of men obviously involved in that helping out too, helping out not giving charity, helping out just giving them the opportunity to get in the room. And that's all anyone needs. No one should get a job because of their gender or sex, or go down the list of all the things I just learned in my sexual harassment seminar. People should be the right person should be hired, but you and I know that's not how this business works.
You need to have a full menu of possible people.
Sure, and and this is what we do, I think, at our agency. We go through, we may have 30.
That was my next question.
Well, I mean, I think about, we don't oversign at this agency. There's other places, let's just say, that do it differently. I'd rather run out of a category than have 20 unhappy people that I know there's not room to book them. That being said, I'll get a call, and it could be the most generic call about a producer for this. Well, I may have 8 producers that are appropriate for that. They've all worked in that country. 3 understand the language. Boil it down. Let's say I put 2 to 3 people forward. I'm not picking and choosing by male and female. But the phone call that we get, and I think we talked about this in an earlier conversation, no longer are people whispering, I need a female DP, or I need a female this, or I need an African American that. They're just point blank saying it, and which is interesting because I'm sure there's, again, on the pendulum subject, there's things you can and can't be saying. Yeah. But those are the calls we get now. And it's tough because you might not have the most qualified person, and again, depending on how you represent your clients, you either say it or you don't. We do. We'll say, look, she's great, or that person, that diverse person is great for this reason. I don't think they're going to pass the smell test with your producer who only wants Academy Award nominated people. There's a disconnect just because it's going to take time to bring a lot of people up. Yeah,
because there's the catch-22 there is if you only ever nominate men for Oscars and then you only have male nominated people to choose from, that's a hard cycle to break.
Very much so.
So the calls you're getting, will they say, send me a list of directors and I want a 50-50 list?
I'd say 80% of the calls never specify whether they need male, female, diversity in some form or fashion. But it is more common that we do get those calls. We get the regular calls, but it's not uncommon to go, hey, and we also try to tailor to that too. If you're doing a film where there's going to be a lot of nudity in it, you know what's smart? A lot of female nudity, maybe more so than male. Pitch a female DP, put some comfort level in the production where, there's some common ground there. I think I've been on enough closed sets like that where I've seen both, and it's just common sense. It's like, because we're not the same people. We're not like one male, female person. We have naked bodies that are different, and I would think if someone is, setting up how I'm going to look naked. You think about how people might look on screen clothed, think how you would feel naked. I know that would take a lot of therapy for me to get through, even to get to shooting that scene.
Well, now they have intimacy coordinators, which
I think
is an
that's
idea
fascinating.
whose time has come.
I know, and I think it's fascinating, and I mean, this is not belittling it, but I feel like it's like weather monitors, that we used to have when we had weather insurance. I never felt like, in the situations I was in, I was on some more high-profile films that had nudity. Some were clothes that I was not invited in, others I needed to be there. The point is, I really didn't see bad behavior in those situations. Bad behavior was everywhere else. Was in that person's trailer, that person's hotel room, that guy's office in the production office. It was never, in the nude scene that you shoot.
I've heard many stories of it happening.
Oh, I'm sure.
Under the covers.
Oh,
on
really?
The set, in the scene.
Ew.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bad. Oh, yeah, bad. And in that situation, if the woman speaks up, she's an asshole.
Oh, God. Sorry, I'm still naive.
Well, you're in luck because I interviewed Amanda Blumenthal. Yeah. She's the intimacy coordinator at HBO, and it's fascinating hearing about the job and how into it she gets and the conflict she deals with.
Different subject probably, but
how do you get that job?
Trained and right.
You can listen to the whole
episode. I was going to say.
She tells the whole thing, but you hear it and you think, oh my God, why have we not had this for 100 years?
Right.
It's amazing.
Right. There's one woman naked and there's 20 guys, with various equipment hovering over you. Yeah.
Comfortable.
Yeah. Sounds like an awesome first date.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's everyone should have an intimacy coordinator.
Okay.
What do you make of the state of women in this industry in the last couple of years?
I need more help with that question.
What do you make of what has happened? Like, did you see it coming when it started to break open? Or you're like, oh my God, it's about time? Like, what has your reaction been?
What I think? Did I see it coming? No. As progressive as I'd like to think I am, I didn't see it coming. I equated in when things broke with various large producers who are under massive lawsuits right now for doing horrible things, or allegedly. Mm-hmm. No one blinked. I didn't blink. Not because I knew he ever did that, but because he was always an asshole.
Right. Because you believed it, because
I interacted with the person in the past on different occasions. He was an asshole. Mm-hmm. I know assholes. I didn't need to. So what raised my eyebrows was, and this is not a joke, although it may sound silly, is I said, when did this masturbating in a corner and making someone watch you become a thing? I go, nothing could be more humiliating or scary for me than doing it. I go, and when did this, when did this blocking a door thing become a thing? And these are things I don't know as a man. But I'm like, that's pretty much rape right there. You're blocking a door? Give me a fucking break. So back to your, what do I think about what's happening? I think it's amazing. But I think, we were talking about this before we recorded. There's not a stated leader because there can't be. Mm-hmm. I feel, and that's on male side and female side. It's everyone's responsibility, and this is not a PSA, but it really is. It's, I have to do my tiny part in the little world I work in. The sliver of this industry and the people that I interact with and put out there. And very much I love these new laws about representatives. You can't send your client in a room if you knowingly know that the person they're going to meet has this behavior. You're just as guilty. And
why did you have to put in that rule?
What's that? Right, exactly.
Why did you have to make that a rule?
No, exactly. But to that point, I think it's amazing what's happening. Look, this sounds, I'm not going to worry about how it sounds anymore. This is my Jewish caveats I throw in everything. Which
we'll clean it up.
Which is, it's about fucking time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it a catchphrase, but give me a break. I mean, it's just like, and then what it did was make me look back to decades of sets I'd been on supervisory positions, observing things. So what I noticed, the second AD going into the first AD's room at night, did I think anything of it? No. There was behavior on location or sets that I didn't necessarily do, but that was common. Well, it goes to, again, my son was reading me the laws from every state this weekend, and he was going down, and there were some ridiculous laws, like, I don't know, you can't kill someone on a Sunday in this certain state, town. Kentucky laws, and I remember shooting films. They're crazy things. This is one of those where you're like, really? Like, we had to put this down on paper.
We got to legislate this?
Right. But apparently we do. And I'll tell you what, this behavior, I have a very dear close friend who works outside of this industry, used to work in this industry, who is dealing with, this is literally weeks ago, dealt with a completely different industry, somewhat touches entertainment, but basically was told, and this is a highly intelligent female, very successful, very appropriate, just a great human being. That's how I feel about my friend. But what she is faced with a boss who point blank just said, if you sleep with me, I will give you more money a week. And this is today, this is happening. And I said, this person is based in a different state. The company is based in a different state. She lives here. And I said, has this guy been watching the news? And this is not a small guy.
Read the room, man.
Right, read the room, exactly.
He's an idiot.
Oh, he's an idiot. But anyway, on that note, this is still happening, of course. And it happens in every business. But ours is just so blatant about it, or was so blatant. I was talking about being on sets for years and watching it, and the jokes, and I worked with, again, a lot of women who worked above me, a lot who worked with me in the production office as well, and giggling along. And what I have learned from my friends and colleagues and just stories I've heard is there's nothing fucking funny going on in their head. And it is really makes, I thought it was super clean. I'm not clean. I'm not clean at, and that's, Monday morning quarterbacking, looking backwards, going like, oh, I should have said this. No, we all watch it. And it's, and I hate it. And I hate that I thought I was so intuitive to people, but never thought that's how women felt for decades on sets. Having to be in the boys club, having to have everyone get along. You're cool, you're good,
Yeah.
They
look like they think it's funny, but really it's survival.
Right, it's survival. That's a great way to put it.
What do you think of the backlash that's now happening? Just yesterday, there was that article about the men on Wall Street won't be alone with women now. They're calling it the Mike Pence rule. Don't be in a car with a woman. Don't take a meal with a woman. Don't travel with a woman.
Okay.
Like, the only way to stay safe as a man
Right.
is to not interact with your female colleague.
What do I think about that? I feel it's sad. I also feel it's amazing that men with that rule are treated as if they're wild animals that can't control themselves. I think it's bullshit. Do I think there's situations now that I've changed, and I think about Wall Street as well, where I keep my door open when I'm interviewing someone, and not because anything wild would happen. I just do it because it really helps. It helps everyone. Maybe there's comfort in her. She's never met me before, and she knows that I'm not a scumbag, but she doesn't know. So the door's open.
I mean, you are an agent.
I am an agent. Thank you. Remember, I'm the anti-agent agent. No, but what I think it goes to the point where we keep making about the pendulum swinging. It's like, to what end? Guys, just, guys and gals, like, seriously? Like, don't be in a room together? I think that probably would have if you polled Wall Street and everyone privately in an office, men and women, I think we'd get the same reaction that the agent here said about me not being able to compliment something she was wearing during that seminar, which is we're supposed to interact like humans. We're not supposed to rape people. We're not supposed to wield our power over them for sex or money or whatever it may be. But I guess on the flip side, it's not common sense, or, well, common practice is maybe it's 2% of people that do this, still 2% of people that do it.
You should be able to know the difference.
Yeah, right. I mean,
it's not that
I don't know what to
hard.
say about it, because it's like, this is it goes to your earlier, this law, the other law we were talking about. It's like, we had to say this? Like, we had to tell. Apparently they have to cover themselves in our litigious society, that they made that law, or they made this rule that you can't do that. So they're covered that we told them they couldn't do it. Who knows? I'm sure it all goes back to litigation and wanting to protect oneself.
Probably.
But it's pathetic.
Hear that, Wall Street?
Sorry, Wall Street friends.
A friend of mine writes this blog, Chartwell West. And also, by the way, hosts the podcast Exit 38.
Nice plug.
Thank you. He wrote a piece recently that as a white man with some privilege, he finally figured out, he thought the game plan was to if you're in a position of power and privilege, the best thing you can do is be benevolent to the people who don't have as much power and agency as you do, and be kind to them and help them. And the thing he finally realized was, actually the job is to dismantle the system that gives you power over other people. What say you to that?
That's a good one. I got to walk in the middle on it a lot, which is because now I am that person who is in a more supervisory position and a partner of an agency and all this. I agree. Look, I am the difference, and I think the person you're speaking about is similar to me in that I never looked at a PA different than a producer. PA would not be barking at me, barking orders to me, as a producer might, but this is a human business, and that is, you get your reputation, I think, about how you treat others, or it comes back to you. I believe in karma. I believe in all these wonderful things that are happening to bad people right now. That being said, there has to be structure and a system. I have greater issues, which is a whole different podcast about current generations, work ethics, and expectations about one's future.
It's a whole nother exploration.
Yes, it is. But that being said, I think that's swinging too far. And the reason is, I don't need to be buddies with everyone I work with. That's something I had to work out. It took me a long time to do that. I got bit a lot of times trying to be well liked. And then you're thrust into a position where, my dad gave me great business advice years ago when that happened, when I took over the agency, which was, he said, Matt, let me make it real simple for you. He said, someone's got to be the bad guy. Someone's got to say no. He said, everyone else will want to say yes. He said, so the difference in management is you have to say no. And it's a very simple statement he made, but it made sense, which is, I'm okay not being the most popular person in the room anymore. Because what I'm doing, hopefully, is for the betterment of the company as well as the employees. To your specific point about, having these stratas or these different behaviors, my other quote from time to time is, this isn't a democracy. I'm talking inside this office. It's not.
I don't think it's about dismantling hierarchy as much as it's dismantling patriarchy. Where do you stand on the burn down the patriarchy question?
Wait. All right. So explain that to me a little more.
I'm just thinking because I agree, business has to have hierarchy. Someone's the boss, someone's making the decisions, right. Everyone has their opportunity to work their way up. But I think the dismantling the power piece is the only the white men rising to the top, or making it so much easier for some people to rise than
Absolutely.
others.
Okay, so, thank you. Yeah, that is, okay, so I agree with that needs a lot more attention. And I'll speak for ourselves here. We have 2 female agents in our group of 10. I just hired a second agent. I went out to dinner with one of our producers, and she was just catching up. How are things going? She's been working for a while, so we haven't really talked about the business. And then she said, I'm really happy you hired so-and-so. It was great seeing that. She goes, you need more women. I said, I do. And this goes to the point about, we were talking about directors earlier and hiring people at different maybe stages of when they're ready or not. And, that's the problem is, she said, and you need diversity. I said, I'm dying for diversity. I'm dying for some color in terms of, we represent everyone. We represent every sex, every color, you don't need a room of 10 white men. And we're working on that. But again, it goes to finding, look, I need to hire talent. I need to hire the people that are best for the job. And we're allowed to do that. I will meet anyone. But at the end of the day, I'm going to hire, no matter what sex they are or what color they are, the best person for the job. So that's got to change, clearly, to your point. Absolutely, because people have to look around that room. And as we were talking about earlier, is there one woman sitting in your conference room, in whatever meeting you're in? Is there one department head? There's either 0, 1, or hopefully a lot more. If you're at 0, you got a real problem. If you got 1, you need to work on it's a little too tokenish. Yeah. You got to work. Not that the person isn't worth the value, but you need to really work on. This comes with opinions, and this comes with how people make decisions in business and ideas. I mean, we need male ideas, and not to make them that way, but female ideas. Ideas from people that come from different backgrounds, that come from different perspectives. the start of the diversity of the people within our company and other companies I've worked with contribute 10 times to what, I would say. With diversity comes, I think, only greater opportunity for you to learn, greater opportunity for us to grow, more ideas, because really it was just a bunch of guys sitting around a room most of the time. I mean, it is. And it gets really boring. No, because it goes to that earlier point. Men have to start, and this includes myself, I am evolving every day, and I will continue to learn every day. But we have to start looking at the people that we work with, the people in our lives, and start, maybe stop allowing the things that we see, as subtle as they may be now, because a lot of people just dialed it down, when this all went down. They took it down to a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
It's no different than a 10 or or an 11 in my favorite movie's case. It's the same
one
thing.
louder.
Right, it's one louder, exactly. No, but you know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's just, I'm just whispering about it now instead of
really examining your own unconscious bias.
Right.
Like having a thought and then saying, wait a minute, why did I think that?
Absolutely. And I do that too. And I, again, coming with other people that you work with that come from different backgrounds, being able to feel comfortable to speak and bring these things up. I love it when someone like that goes, well, that doesn't make sense to me, and here's why. And we need to hear that.
Yeah, because that has not at all been my experience.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's fascinating, but look, I'm also, I'm getting on the older generation. I'm not quite at the oldest generation.
Hey, we're the same age, so ratchet that back a little.
So we're millennials.
It's our first job.
This is a great first job. Anyway, I was doing a lot of babbling just to say that so much of this, as we know, is common sense. But if your buddy or your colleague or your family member doesn't exercise the same common sense, then it's really our job to maybe point it out to them. And it usually works better in private, quietly, because that's the only time a lot of men will listen, as opposed to in a big group.
Okay. What about redemption? If someone is in entertainment purgatory, can I say Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
Can he come back? Like, what?
Is
there a road back, and what do they have to do?
Well, come on. It's Hollywood. There's a road back for everyone. I mean, there was some joke on some TV show. I forgot what it was. I think it was Daily Show. Where they're talking about, if anyone ever questions about a comeback, someone mentioned Mel Gibson. They're like,
oh, yeah.
Right, remember that?
Remember that guy?
Remember? One of the first guys I worked with, too, never seeing that side. But then that happens, well, they come back. But on the comebacks, I mean, look, I think anyone who deals with, who does anything to anyone underage should be destroyed on the spot.
In the prison.
In the prison. But I don't want to spend money on them in prison. But that's a different debate. But no, I mean, to me, it's like those people, everyone comes back in this town. Do I think Harvey's going to come back? I'll tell you something. I wouldn't be shocked if Harvey comes back. And
seriously?
Yeah, but in a whole different capacity. He's not going to be the front man. He's not going to be a
silent
can.
Producer?
Absolutely. He's going to, people like that have a will to survive, and they rise to the top. They crash, very quickly, no matter how long the rise was. And then people start forgetting. No one ever thought he was a nice guy, in my understanding.
No.
So I'd yet to meet anyone and go, wow, that was a great meeting. So, so on that
what
note.
A mensch.
He didn't have to do that for me. Wow. Anyway, I have too many of these.
Those are stories where he threw a sandwich at me.
Right, oh yeah. No, I witnessed something similar in London where you're like, God, you're an asshole. Sorry.
Sorry, Harvey.
Sorry, Harvey.
What an asshole.
No, but look, we see it. But when I think about something like that, but the purgatory, you speak of, it's like everyone can come back. Everyone can come back. They do. We watch it all the time. I think it's fucked up. I think it's sick.
Do you think now, though, there's going to be different criteria for coming back, more than just time?
There was no criteria before except money. That was it. It was always about what money can we make on this person. Do people welcome Mel Gibson back because of his charming personality? No, he's a very talented writer and director.
An actor.
An actor, absolutely. And someone probably made a decision off one of the projects of this is an excellent script and an excellent project, and Their money may come from other places that are, not our common financing areas. And you make a movie. And guess what? Critics still will like a good movie. And they will still give accolades. Will he be invited? When you're going down the checklist for the awards, if you're on an academy or some other one of the guilds, you might skip over his name to check it, even if you loved his film. But they're still back. They're doing what they love doing. They had really bad behavior, but my God, so many people have that behavior in all different ways. I just have to believe that I would rather people be exposed if they have to come back than never be exposed and just be terrible people. So what's going on now, I think, is fantastic, that people are being outed and rightfully that women and other people who have been victims of these people feel safe talking about it because you have allies and colleagues that you feel safe. And I could not imagine being in that position 5 years ago before all this started and what you do about it, because I have so many friends, and you mentioned this, in this business and outside, there's a story after story after story, terrible stories. So that was depressing.
Wah,
Womp womp.
Okay, then one other theory I'm working on right now, because I'm seeing a couple different Hollywoods operating at the same time. One of them being the studio system, the other is the independent kind of make your own work underground. Tell me if you think this is at all right. Because I see there's still the Hollywood machine, making deals, making money, where the only criteria is the making money. Maybe. I don't know if this is true. And there's a lot of talk about almost like the moral imperative of Hollywood to reflect our world and change the culture and represent everybody on screen so that we can make the world a better place.
And make money.
Those two things probably have to meet.
Yeah, I think, so what's your question? And then I'll answer.
Is that true?
I think and we'll go part A, part B. Part A is 100% true, as it's always been.
Yeah.
Money. Part B is clearly more than it's ever been, but I think there's a lot of talk too.
Yeah, how much do people really care about it? Like the people who are actually making the money, how much do they actually care about that other thing? Because I know all the people not making money really care about the other thing.
Right. Well, let's put it this way. You don't work in the business. You live, I use my sister's town. You live in Homewood, Illinois. Sorry. You live in Flossmoor, Illinois. Sorry, sis. And the blockbuster's coming out, the one that you've been waiting for from Marvel. And guess what? It doesn't have a moral edge to it of, and my sister is very progressive and very, PhD in psychology, doesn't mess around, has 3 girls, 1 boy, very strong. But, will she point out the things she sees in these movies, even though she goes to it? She goes to it. She brings her kids to it because everyone will want to see it. Are you going to get more seats in the theater because you hit a moral issue and you hit something really timely? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I think it's always been about the story. I think there's more opportunities for different media, different types of media, whether it's alternative television, like reality, or there's documentaries, which I think will be the most powerful part of what's going on right now because there's so much reference you can use from the past. But no, I think right now, no one's sitting in a room saying we have to do something for the greater good of blank. I don't think they've ever said that.
I did sit in one room once with a bunch of reality producers who were all about let's change hearts and minds in Middle America.
That would be
right
amazing.
After Trump.
Well,
I
yes.
don't know what happened.
See, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, that's a different. But yes, I think. Again, I'm participating in this world like everyone else. But I think about with Trump. So many people are saying, obviously, that the movement that really has been pushed out of Hollywood right now and moving, many people say it was because Trump was elected.
100%.
Right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
100%.
a male. I appreciate your perspective. No, I mean, look, it's like you got away with that. They're not anymore. And, in terms of Trump, and I think I said to someone, this is months ago, once again, I get in debates and I never ask what side people are on, just assuming that the world feels the same as I do.
Everyone's a progressive liberal,
right?
Especially in this town.
Right. Well, that's helped on every election I've been on a set for, where we're all like, "What just happened?" Anyway, with that, I say the best thing that came out of Trump is this. It really is. Look. He will be a distant memory and a very dark spot in history, but he'll be gone. But this stuff lives on.
What a beautiful catalyst you turned out to be.
Aw,
Silver lining.
thanks, Donald. I think people want to change. I feel this is where I'm speaking as a man. I feel like there are a lot of men that want to see a different type of business. It's not like we have been watching horrible, most of us have not watched, you hear stories of this and that and the other thing, but I think all of us would love that gone. Who the hell wants that?
This is interesting to me, though, because so many men say, well, I've never seen that happen, and every single woman has a story. So
every man has seen it happen, but they don't look, this is not, and I'm guilty of the same thing, which is, sorry to cut you off, which is, I got
oh my God, to hear this man interrupting
oh my
me?
God, he's steamrolling me, and this is my podcast, mine. Thank you for letting me jump in.
I have final edit.
That's true. You can mess me up completely. No, I was going to say that, speaking for myself as well, we've all seen it, but we don't know. We are too conditioned to so many things in our life, from being I'll speak for myself as man, from being a boy to a teenager to a young man to a middle-aged man. You're learning all the time, but you walk into a business at age 20, which I did, and you watch, oh, this is how it's done. I mean, I was so green and naive anyway. It was
this is how it is.
Right, and it wasn't weird that, oh, so-and-so's sleeping with that person, or that secretary, or that assistant. And again, going back, I had male and female stories. Whether it's right or wrong, you're conditioned to it.
Right.
So when men say, I've never seen it, of course they've seen it. Anyone on one set for one day, especially in the past, would see it.
They may not recognize it.
They would walk by and stand by these three people on set, three men, and that woman would walk by, and it would rarely be the actor or actress. It would be someone working on the crew, and you would hear it, and you would hear all the things that boys would talk about on a street corner growing up. Watching a pretty girl walk down the street. So, point is that, of course, we've seen it. It's about what you do to it, and I'm not the first one to go, oh my God, wait, that's wrong. But you try to look at something and go, okay, that's, again, that's someone I want to do business with or I don't, or that's someone I want to help or not, or this is someone that I have the freedom to talk to about how I feel about that subject. But it is interesting you saying that most men say that they haven't seen it. I think most men haven't seen a mega producer block the door naked masturbating in front of an actress. Yeah,
True.
I mean, I'm on that
True.
team. I've yet to see that. Just have the visuals from the stories, which are hard enough.
God. But I've also heard several men say that the wage gap is a myth because they've never seen that.
Untrue.
Because you've seen that.
I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I'll tell you. I'm very open about this. I think this is what I love about what's happening now. I do a lot of executive deals for studios and networks and self-finance companies, just companies. And a lot of deals for men and women. The dialogue I had on a deal about a year ago was for a studio exec who had more experience than her counterpart that was currently above her. But, they'd been there the male had been there a long time. The female was coming in somewhat recently. And it was time for negotiation. And I talked to the head of business affairs for the studio. I happened to do one of the other person's deals, so I knew what their salary range was. And I said, this is what we need. They came back with, this is, but we started her here and and she's only been here a year. And I just said, and this was to a female business affairs executive, and I said, I'm going to make it really clear. I go, this person will not make 1 cent less than so-and-so. What do you mean? That this person, I'll remind you, I did so-and-so's deal, that this person, meaning the female executive, will not make less. I got to call you back. Hour and a half, they came back with more than the male was getting.
What happened?
I was not using it as a negotiation tool. I was just like, well, this is a no-brainer in terms of just getting you there.
Do the right thing.
Do it. So my second quick story is line producer, hadn't worked much at studio films. I represent female, called an excellent executive who's female and said, hey, let's start negotiating. We started talking. The male producer that had just done a recent film, I knew what he had made. And I said, I want no less than X, which is a very significant jump from where my client was prior. Why was the question? I go, because my client can do the job equally, if not better than so-and-so, which in this case was very true. And without hanging up the phone, the executive, she said, you're damn right. And she said, I'll call you back. And call back and did an unprecedented jump for a producer because they deserved it 10 times over. So those are the little things we try to do. I know internally here, there's complete equality, in places like this. That goes from support staff up to agents. There's just a scale we all have. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that it wasn't that long ago that, what is it, women are making 60 cents on the dollar or something like that compared to men?
Yeah, like yesterday.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, recently. So anyway, so in this business, there's a lot more of that going on. It helps having allies. It helps having women.
The information.
Well, the information. And there's a couple groups out here that poll with me and I'm sure a bunch of other people in town who ask for rates. And I will give them ranges and rates and, never with names, but who's making what, doing what. And there are some reactions every year to, oh my God, are you serious? But what you're seeing now is there's power to very quickly change that and say, explain to me why this person, and look, there are times that it isn't a match, that the experience isn't the same thing. You don't, just because you have the same title doesn't mean you get the same money. You have different experiences that you come to the table with and different responsibilities within those companies. So, if you're a widget maker, you should get the same money as the widget maker next to you.
And just raising the question usually
right.
goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Because if you ask them, justify why not?
Well, that would be the answer I'd want to hear.
Okay, so just to clarify, when you say you do it, you meant you're closing the wage gap, not that you create the wage gap.
Yes, I am working to help the wage gap.
Excellent. I've kept you for almost an hour and a half. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Yeah. A, I've never professionally modeled. B, no.
I didn't want to ask and wait till I turned it off.
Right, because I didn't know if it was appropriate in this day and age to assume you would be a model. No, look, I think, here's a shameless plug, but I mean this. I love what you're doing. I love just the whole series, the people you're talking to. I love that there's a platform for people to tell these stories. And again, this goes to me just hearing the stories, being late on set or flying to this place with that boss, telling me stories, telling me, anticipating how something was going to go when they met that male director. Get ready, this is what's going to happen. It's nice that everyone can just talk about it now. And with very little repercussion, hopefully none. And I think that's really what we have to work on our side as men, which is if there is any misperceived slights or any bullshit like that, get over it, because the steamroller is going to roll over us. The movement's there, and it's not going away, nor should it. And it's long overdue. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
You're brave. Let me just say that. You've been listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Matt Birch for sharing his story. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.